Welcome back to the garage. My name is Zane, and in today's video, it's finally time to talk about the property cleanup. The property cleanup at first will consist of pictures, and then we'll switch over to video. Now, if you're waiting on working on stuff, bear with me because we're this close to actually working on stuff. If you're subscribed to the channel, I greatly appreciate it. If not, let me ask you in the nicest way possible to subscribe.
Don't make me ask twice.
Alright, all jokes aside, just kidding around, but it would help me out a lot more than you would ever imagine, so without further delay, let's get on with the video. It's downright amazing to see such an accumulation of leftovers from various fixes throughout the years. Old metal bed frames, bumpers, truck frame, even the pile of tires on the skids to the right of the picture. That pile of scrap iron, sometimes smaller or larger in size, had been by the shop for over 12 years. Air compressor is running in the background, but here's a view of before this rock is all spread out. I got the ground about as good as I can get. I need to scratch that up with the blade so I can get the gravel to pack in there pretty good, so there's no more of a big hump to get into my garage. I want to fill that with gravel. Got that pile of trash to get rid of. Fill this with gravel over here next to the house and try to spread as much rock as I can down in through this area. Things are moving along pretty good so far. I got the Bobcat with the blade attachment on there. The 6-way blade dozer is sitting here. That's what I'll more than likely use to spread the gravel out. I got this pile of good scrap iron sitting in an old Ford truck bed. A lot of these projects have just been sitting by the wayside for quite a while, but once this rock goes down, it should be time to get back on to making some of these run and move, hopefully starting with that first. Here's the Bobcat blade attachment. You can flip the blade around either way you want to go. It's a 3-point hitch for a tractor. My dad actually made these mounts to slide the forks in. There's one in the back. There's one right up here. You can see this is the pin where you can flip this blade around. And this chain actually holds it onto the backrest of this little Bobcat. Works out pretty slick. I'm not really sure, but at this point it looks like the footage is lost because the camera that I was using just decided to freeze. So hopefully I got some footage. If not, I guess I'll just have to strike that one up to a big fail. Being away from YouTube for quite a long time and forgetting all the normal problems that I have. So let me try to get the camera set up and see if I can get some footage of spreading this rock around. I've got some plans for later this evening, so I think this is where I'm going to stop for tonight. You can see I've done a little bit of handwork there. I don't want to get too close to the house with the machinery because I am no operator by any stretch of the imagination. I just want to knock these piles down so when I get the little 6-way blade dozer out and start grading this, I won't have as much of a hill to climb over the top of. But you can see I've got a lot more work ahead of me. We'll see how things go in the next few days. More property cleanup. I've got the gravel spread down here. You've probably seen this truck in a video already, at least hopefully. 96 Ford F350. Got a gooseneck trailer up there. The first part of the video will be cleaning up around the garage, and now it's time to start down here. And you can see how things have been scattered for so long that I need to get this cleaned up before the weather gets too warm and I can't come out here and work without sweating myself to death. So I need to move this truck bed full of good scrap steel and get it out of here. The 6-way blade dozer is getting moved over the hill. The loader's going to sit where it's been. The TD6 back there is getting moved right next to this, a little ways out of the way. There's this old Ford tractor. It's a 900. 2 wood-burning furnaces that my parents bought fairly cheap off of Marketplace. One right next to the other. I need to get them moved out of the way. You can see the second one sitting back there. School bus really needs moved. There's the brush hog tractor. The Travelette sitting right here in the way. I haven't done anything with it in quite a while. There's the property line. These are all backed up to the fence. The biggest thing that I want to get done is move this rollback frame closer to the garage so I can work on it. But I also want to come down here and cut a couple of these small trees down and move this sawmill. The sawmill's been sitting down here for so long that there's trees growing through it. Now that's something that my dad bought years ago and just never done anything with. Let me show you the trees growing through here. Again, this is the property line. I'll take a look at that. Got another spot on the bottom where it's growing around the lower rail of this sawmill. I've got this big tree here. It's pretty much the marker where I can stop with vehicles. I don't want to go any further down because I don't want to have anything in my field that the neighbors down there can mess with. Got this old Dodge that I need to move out of the way. There used to be a path in through here that I could actually drive vehicles through or machinery, but this truck's sitting pretty much right in the way. I've got this old Dodge half-ton truck that's pretty much a dune buggy that is sitting in the way, and this little throwaway GMC Sonoma. Got a 4.3 automatic. The roughest vehicle and the dirtiest vehicle that I've ever bought in my entire life. Starts up and runs, or at least it did, but it was kind of a back burner vehicle. I thought about turning into a little parts runner truck, but just never got around to it. All of this needs moved eventually, but I'll show you what I'm talking about with that in a minute. This truck needs moved over to the fence row where the sawmill is sitting. This truck also needs moved over to the fence row where the sawmill is sitting. The big forklift I used over the weekend, got to clean the carburetor because it wasn't running right. My dad bought these huge ramps off of Facebook Marketplace really cheap. They came off a lowboy trailer. I got a loader frame here that needs moved. There's an old planer back here. Quite a bit of this stuff is already sitting up off the ground on a skid, so I can just pick it with the big forklift here. But that pretty much does it for what needs moved for right now. So let me show you some progress. I didn't record moving the sawmill because it was kind of a nail-biting experience. I had to jump off of the TD6 a couple different times and hook the chains up. But you can see progress. The sawmill is moved. I still need to move these various pieces of metal out of the way. There's a few stumps that I might dig out of the ground later. But like I said, this is all progress. I also wanted to show this tree right here is getting cut down. The bundle of 3 over here on the fence line are also getting cut down. And so is the one right behind me. But of course I got to move that really nice solid crew cab out of the way so I don't destroy the cab on it. But anyways, let me show you how I actually move the sawmill. I'm losing daylight pretty fast, so if I talk over myself, please just ignore it. This is after work. I want to go inside and get something to eat. But I pulled the TD6 right up here, and I ran a chain from that corner to that corner. I also made sure to stay out of the way of this rail, because that's how the sawmill, I guess, carriage actually slides down. Don't want to ding this up because then it's not going to work right. But anyways, down here on the back side, I made these stirrups and put this axle, this mobile home axle, in the back. These actually slide over the legs for the sawmill. You can see I've got a piece of pipe just a little bit bigger in diameter that slides over it on the top and on the bottom. And I actually made this here the last night, really. I didn't want to weld this to the axle in case I want to use the axle for something else. That way you can see it won't go forward and it won't go backwards. It's still in there. I can just lift the sawmill up, take these brackets off, and use the axle whenever I need it. But that's how it worked out. I've got it down here out of the way where I can mow around it. You can see my Willys Jeep body just sitting back there. Trust me, this is all a long process. I'm trying to get everything moved and cleaned up to where I can work on stuff like the Jeep and not have something like this sawmill sitting in the way. Now, nothing against my father. He bought this quite a few years ago. I honestly think it's been sitting on that fence row for about 20 years. He's a guy that's always got a lot of irons in the fire. And now that I got it like this, where you can simply go up to the front of it and move it with a piece of machinery, I'm hoping that he starts actually doing something with this. It's in pretty nice shape. I believe it's homemade. I don't think that it was a factory unit of any kind. I'll try to put this into some kind of timeline. It's kind of hard to explain. These videos are so far out of order. But tomorrow, for me, is the day that I release the video on this Ford F-350 doing the power wash job on here. Getting it all cleaned up. Everything is in terrible disarray because of the property cleanup, which I'll show you. There's the 6-way blade dozer that I'll be using today. I've got this truck bed full of scrap that I still need to move. You can see the path that I've been using the Bobcat to go down. The grass is about waist high because I can't get the mower around all this stuff to mow down here. It's been raining just about every week for the last 2 months or so. And naturally, since I've got all these trees around here, which I do love for the shade, there's no sun that gets to the ground and dries it up. You can see standing water over here. This is some fill dirt that I hauled in from another chunk on the property. But since I'm trying to get this all leveled out, I'll get in here with the dozer, try to smooth it out the best I can. I'll set the camera up down here, down somewhere there, because it's probably going to be fun to watch. I'm probably going to end up burying that dozer all the way up to the belly pan because this is so soft, but I've really got no other options at this point. And of course, technical difficulties. Quit running on me. I can only guess what happened to it. It's probably out of gas. Looks like there's some in the fuel bowl, but I checked it before I started. Anyways, always something. It's looking a little bit better. I think I forgot to mention, this is a case 450. I think it's late 1960s, early 70s, somewhere in that area. Looks a little bit better than when I started out here. It's just a muddy, soupy mess. Making a little bit of progress. I have to keep telling myself, document your progress, Zane. Try to actually be a good YouTuber. You can see the stuff sitting here in disarray. The 6x6 is over here. The old Dodge crew cab sitting over here too. Before you even say anything, I know it's absolutely pathetic of me having this sit in the fence row for about 12 years and never do anything with it. Trying to get this stuff to where I can work on it easier. I made a mess of the gravel that I put down already. Hopefully tomorrow, that tree right there on the fence line will be gone. That's the next piece of the puzzle. Like I said, stuff sitting around in disarray. I actually had grass here at one point in time, but whenever it's muddy and been raining for the last few weeks, you still have to get stuff done. So much for having grass. This frame just rolled up against the bonfire here, running out of room to put stuff without having the fence row clean. Starting to make pretty good progress. Couldn't get anything through here at first, but I got a lot of work to do to try to get this grass to grow back. There is pretty much the finished effect. Could it use more work? Yes. Do I have the time to let it sit and grow grass on it? No, I do not. Today's 95. Tomorrow's supposed to be 98. Getting into the hot weather, and this is as good as I can do. Got a lot more room to put stuff in down here. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but on that dirt pile there's a few squirrels jumping around. That is pretty much the finished product. I would love to let this sit, put some straw and seed on it for grass to grow, but I just simply do not have the time. So I'll stack the vehicles in here. This will probably be a little bit of a headache because the rain will probably wash some of this out. I'll probably have to tend to it quite a bit, but this is as good as I can do. My parents watch these videos, so let's see if my dad remembers. That sawmill was sitting on these pieces of 1/4-inch plate. I dug them up with the dozer. I got all 4 of them. There's only 3 here. Another one I put over on the scrap pile already, or the good steel / scrap pile, so it can be used for something else. Got to move that truck. That's probably going to go by the tree. The S10's going to go on the other side of the property. I can't really do anything with the rollback frame as of right now. I'll probably drag it forward once I get that international truck out of the way and over on the fence line, but probably a lot of repetitiveness. This is a lot of starting and stopping, but pretty much ready to go. How about a little progress? Now I can't spend any time on this today because I've actually got to weld some mounts on here to put a tow bar on the front of this truck. Not the finished product yet, but hopefully you can see my idea is actually starting to come to light. Got everything lined up here. I'll do a walk around of all the projects that I've got when this is all done and over with. The idea is to be able to either mow in between these or pull them out, mow underneath of them, and then push them back with the bobcat. This truck was very difficult to get over here. I've got it all cleaned up down here. Still got a little bit more to do. I have to move that S10 out of the way. All this stuff is arranged pretty good. Got room for more. Finally moved the rollback bed out of the way, even though I technically made it worse and put it right back here in the way. But this is actually going to get moved up where the green Ford is at. The green Ford's probably going to go over next to the loader, so I can actually put fuel pumps in it or whatever it needs. So this area will be cleaned up before too long. School bus is probably going to stay where it's at. Little tractor's going to get moved. I need to do some brush hogging anyway, so there's a good chance might actually start up the 977. My dad's wanting to do some clearing on the chunk of land that they got, so there might be a video in there. Things are shaping up nicely. I used a little brush hog earlier. It looks a lot rougher than it is. I really need to one day give it a decent paint job. Maybe find another one of these panels. But I actually splurged and bought a brand new battery for this little case. But it's sitting right where this rollback bed's going to go. All of this down here on the other side that I'm going to show you is pretty much an afterthought of what I was going to do. But I've got my one equipment trailer here. We'll go over that in another video. I can put my gooseneck right next to it. And I think if I come down here with the backhoe and rip what's left of this stump out of the ground, I believe I can park that little brush hog right here. That where it's somewhat level. I can actually check the oil. The way it was sitting on that hill every time you went to check the oil before you started, it looked low because it was leaning. But for the first ever appearance of the backhoe on the channel, I think I'll bring it down here and dig this stump out of the ground. Now it's not very big and I'm not that good on the backhoe, but we'll see what we can do. I don't think it'll take too long to get this ripped out of the ground. So let's go over to it and get it started up. know if you can hear me over the engine. All the labels are worn off. But this is for the right outrigger. This one's for the left outrigger. This one controls the lower boom up and down. This one here controls the outer boom up and down. This one controls the curl on the bucket, but it's very slow. The valve body probably needs rebuilt because this works way slower than it ever should. It curls in pretty quick, but not out. I've got earplugs in, so sorry if I'm yelling at you. Whenever I run the backhoe, I normally have the bucket flat, but since I'm close to this rollback frame, I've got to put it up on edge. I know a lot of guys will run the bucket all the way over. Honestly, I don't see the point unless you're trying to get up higher, like you're loading in the back of a rail car. But anyways, that's pretty much a tutorial on this old case backhoe. Let's not forget about the various junk next to the furnace room behind my house. Old appliances, and of course, more piled up but usable tires. Not to mention the old toilet full of leaves. This mess was here for about 5 years or so. Next would be the 4 massive loads of scrap iron that my dad and I dug out of the field and hauled to the scrap yard in the tandem dump truck. Axles, lawnmower frames, dozer sprockets and rollers. Luckily, the backhoe made loading all of this a breeze. The final load of scrap had this International TD20 engine block and rotating assembly in it. At one time, this was a complete but rough dozer that was all together, but the engine through a rod. The cylinder head is removed in the picture, but it was still enough weight for the International TD6 that's holding it to tip forward. Estimated weight on the scrap engine, about 2,800 pounds. It was a bit difficult to find a dozer online in pictures that was close enough to the TD20 that my dad had all those years ago. This is a TD21, which is similar. The blade was controlled by cables. That's right, no hydraulics on these older models. The machine weight is around 52,000 pounds, or roughly the size of a Caterpillar D7. There's quite a bit of the aftermath of the cleanup. There's a lot of trees cut up and piled up around here that'll have to eventually move to a more safe spot that I can burn it. But are you ready for this reveal? I think things look vastly different in my opinion. Now originally I was going to stop at this big tree, but I continued my cleanup a little bit further down. I've got this old International sitting down here about at the end of where I'm stopping for now. This area down here, I would like to continue a little bit further, but everything that you see that's got grass on it is in need of fill. There's about a 2-foot drop or so. So I stopped with the dirt right about there. I've got the Jeep frame sitting down here, my CJ2A. I love this big tree. I've said before in different videos, usually during the summertime, the hawks will nest in here, so there's all kinds of wildlife jumping from branch to branch. Speaking of branches, I've got a pretty big limb hanging over the 6x6, but I kind of figured if it falls on the frame in the back, that's not really going to damage anything, and this truck doesn't really even have a cab to worry about. The old International is sitting right next to it. Now I'm not going to really go through and show these trucks and various vehicles in depth because the next video I'm going to go over each one of the projects that I have, what I plan on doing to them, talking about some of the stuff that I've bought over the last few months, some of the stuff I've actually sold too, believe it or not. So look forward to that video. But everything is cleaned up nicely, just kind of waiting for the grass to grow in here. Everything off to my left side was an afterthought. I also bought an equipment trailer that I haven't shown yet. But there was a GMC top kick frame sitting here. There were some paddle boats and an old fuel tank. From about this tree, almost all the way to the tongue of the trailer was filled with small trees and various vines growing throughout. Now in this area, I got something planned, and we'll see if I can actually pull this off or not. But we're standing down. My garage is on the right, my house is on the left. there's a fence right there that separates the two from a busy road. Now I don't want to go up there and show that. Even though I have a YouTube channel, I still do want to keep some of my personal life out of here. I know if I show that up close, some crazed person out there on the internet, even though I have very nice subscribers, I'm sure there's some crazy person that's going to try to look my house up on Google Maps, and then one day when I walk outside to go to work in the morning, I'm going to get hit in the face with a carpenter's hatchet. So I'm trying to avoid that, let's just put it that way. But right up there, now that that area is clean and all the rock is put down, I can actually pull vehicles all the way down through here to the fence line, or eventually I would like to clean up this area right here and build some kind of a pole barn. Now, money is just about like everybody else out there watching. Money is pretty tight, so it might not be anything extraordinary right off the bat. I'm thinking possibly a 30 by 40 with a concrete floor, and hopefully, fingers crossed, a 2-post lift to where I can work on stuff a little bit easier. Now there's actually well casing here that's pretty rusty, but it's also thick, and a person could just about build a pole barn out of that. Various scrap metal that, honestly, this pile's been here for about 40 years. A lot of this stuff was iron that my grandfather drug in here. There's a 1929 Sterling truck right there, what's left of it. And then right next to it used to be a 1932 Ford school bus. Of course, back in the day, the body was made out of wood and it's since rotted off of there. You can see trees growing up through the frames. I'll go over that in another video. I've actually posted a video on these trucks before, but if I clean this area up, I would really like to try to get one or both of them possibly running if there's any way to do so. My grandfather bought these, I think, in the 50s. Put them here on the place because they were unusual, and long story short, he never done much with them. So cleaning this up will be at the end of this year, right before winter time, so I don't get infested with poison ivy. You see there's some trees to cut down. Again, I bought an equipment trailer. You see a little burn pile going over there that's getting rid of some of the small trees that I got out of here, but this place looks vastly different, if I do say so myself. I also wanted to mention that this frame is sitting in the way for right now, but that's all going to change. It's been here for about 3 weeks now. But after the next video, in which we go over the fence line and talk about all of the projects that I have and what I'm going to do with them, you've got my words. Before winter time, the next video is going to be taking this truck and finally doing something with it. I'm going to pull the front bumper off of it, strip the axles and transfer case out from underneath of it, and use it on the rollback that you just seen. The engine is spoken for by a kind subscriber of the channel that needs one for his grain truck. The body of this truck is also spoken for by fellow YouTuber and friend of mine, Wesley Johnson, who has a truck just like this on his channel. I'll go over this further, but the frame on the truck is in really rough shape. So like I said, if you stick with me, before the snow falls here in Missouri, we're finally going to start working on some of this stuff once again. Got a pretty decent brush fire going on behind me. That's mostly the remnants of the small trees that I cut down for the property cleanup around here. Like I mentioned before in some of my other videos, my grandfather had a salvage business here back in the day. So a lot of the equipment that you see was something that he used for his business. And a 6-wave blade dozer, the Bobcat, and some of those items were stuff that my dad and I both bought. So it's nice to have that stuff around to do property cleanup. I would hate to imagine what it would have cost to have rented that stuff to have worked out here. Now, if I would have had about 2 or 3 weeks off from work, I probably could have done this within a month's time. But to be completely honest with you, I think since this was all stretched out over 3-day weekends and days off of work when the weather was actually nice, I think this whole process took about 8 or 9 months to complete. Not to mention the scrap hauling that you see in the beginning of the video was from last year before winter, so I know it's kind of pitiful, the fact that I can't put videos out consistently and it takes me a long time to do stuff. And just to tell you the truth, I mean, I work a full-time job. Sometimes I go into work early and other times I actually stay late, so it's pretty much an impossibility for me at this point to put a video out every single week. But as you can tell with the property cleanup, I'm really trying. So if you stuck with me through all this time, I greatly appreciate that, and it helps me out a lot more than you would ever imagine. I know I say that a lot, but that's the truth. I got all kinds of kind comments, people wanting to know where I was at, and this property has always been a little bit on the cluttered side. My grandfather had that salvage business, and then my father and I, since we're both gearheads, that really didn't help out. But I think the most part of it was me bringing old trucks home and just sitting them right in the way, right in a path where I couldn't move anything around it. So now that everything's cleaned up, I should be able to try to do videos on a more consistent basis. So anyways, that's enough rambling for today. I might also throw in that footage, like I said, of trying to build a pole barn in the near future. So hopefully that's a possibility. Be nice to actually work on this stuff in the winter time and maybe have a wood stove in the garage. But anyways, I drug this out a lot further than it needs to go. Thanks for watching. My name is Zane, and I really hope to catch you next time. Just about time to start recording, and look what I ran across. A little junkyard bunny.